Hello, everyone. This is Greg Alexander, and welcome to the SBI podcast. I'm so excited to have you join me. This show has been in the works for many, many months. Joining us is a top B2B marketing leader who flat out gets it. Our featured expert is a graduate of Stanford with an MBA from the Kellogg School of Management. She then took that powerhouse education and went on to lead Ariba and later SAP's marketing efforts as the global head of solution marketing. And now she's leading solutions marketing at Ellucian. Members of the audience from the software companies and software industries should be salivating right now. Content marketing in the B2B marketing world is still in the early stages of maturity, and that's why so much of what we see out there lacks audience relevance. I asked our expert to connect the dots between solution marketing and the intersection of great content marketing. So if you're in marketing out there, particularly in software or in B2B, and you're trying to be relevant to your customers through content marketing, this show is for you. So stick around. I hope you enjoy it.
Welcome to the SBI podcast, offering CEOs, sales and marketing leaders ideas to make the number.
Welcome to the SBI podcast, a weekly broadcast dedicated to helping you make your number by getting your peers to share with you how they are making theirs. Today we're going to demonstrate how to earn brand preference by satisfying the information needs of your target customers and prospects. So why this topic? Old activities-centric marketing organizational charts tend to create ineffective silos and prevent revenue growth. In contrast, modern outcomes-centric marketing organizational charts eliminate these silos and provide seamless integration with the product and sales teams and unlock trapped revenue potential. My name is Greg Alexander. I'm the CEO of SBI, and I am your host. And helping me today with our demonstration is an executive who knows an awful lot about this topic. Her name is Emily Rakowski, and she's the Vice President of Solution Marketing for Ellucian. Emily, welcome to the show, and please introduce yourself to the audience.
Hi, Greg. Thanks so much. It's great to be here today. My name is Emily Rakowski. I'm heading up the solutions marketing function now at Ellucian. Ellucian is a high-tech provider to the higher institution space around the world. So we serve over 2,400 colleges and universities globally, and our technology really helps them run their business, everything from HR and finance, student information systems, to the CRM cycle of recruitment, advisement, and advancement within institutions. So we really run the gamut soup to nuts, serving higher ed. In my background, I was also a solutions marketing and audience marketing executive for SAP and SAP Ariba. So I was supporting the sourcing and procurement software functions for those businesses and spent about 16 collective years there. And prior to that, was a consultant with A.T. Kearney in my early career.
Okay, well, very good. All right, so we're going to tackle earning brand preference right now by satisfying the information needs of your target customers and prospects. I'm going to get into the finer details of content marketing and audience marketing. Okay, so you ready to jump into the questions?
Absolutely.
All right, so my first question for you, Emily, is which customer and prospect audiences do you prioritize, and what information needs do these prioritized customers and prospects have?
Yeah, that's a great question, Greg, and an interesting one that I think has really been evolving over the last decade or so as more and more software solutions have moved to the cloud. So what we've seen as a trend in the B2B software space is that a lot of providers are going directly to the functional groups and functional users that will actually end up leveraging software and benefiting from software. But that's not to say that IT and IT leaders are not still critical to address and work with. So I think it's a real balancing act these days for B2B software marketers as to whether you go full board towards the functional users or towards the IT users. You really have to craft your message specific to each of these audiences and make sure that you're engaging their interests in how they might move forward with your product.
You know, I'm really glad you brought this up because, as you know, as a client of SBI's, we do a lot of work in the software space, and we've helped a lot of companies move from on-premise to the cloud. And it's a very difficult thing to do. And it makes solutions marketing in particular really hard because you're right. You have to speak to the functional groups now, because they're really buying a service or an outcome, if you will. But IT is going to be an essential audience as well, because they have their own set of concerns and issues, security, what have you. One of the kind of, I guess, bedrocks of content marketing is the ability to repurpose content. So how do you do that when you have two very distinct audiences there? Or do you? Do you just say, I'm going to write and produce content for the two different groups?
That's a great question. I mean, I feel like we really do both these days. So we write content that works for both audiences, but also integrates the audiences into a conversation. So what happens a lot is that IT needs to support the purchase. They need to support the solution once it's been implemented and moving forward. The functional users have requirements that they're asking IT to meet, to maybe help configure the software or customize it in some cases. And you're trying to bring the audiences, their needs, their goals, and the outcomes together into one successful project at the end of the day, and an ongoing successful relationship between those functional teams and their IT departments.
Yeah.
And what we find is that sometimes as the provider of the software, we're able to play a role where we facilitate that conversation. So while we might craft some content that's more for IT from a technical security risk management standpoint, at the same time, we arm them with information that's going to let them know how their business users are going to benefit functionally, what kind of changes they're going to see to their business, and why it's compelling for that group. And then likewise, on the functional side, we talk more about the business benefits, the outcomes, the ROI of leveraging the software, but at the same time, we talk to the reasons why it's a better technical solution and technical outcome than they might get with a competitor. So that they can both understand each other's perspectives, and we're building the business case really from both sides and bringing it together, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, and I love the fact that you as the provider is the bridge between those two groups, and you're facilitating the conversation and the dialogue. One thing you mentioned to me there, which is a question that I want to ask, is needs, goals, and outcomes of the audience. So sometimes my clients share with me that are embarking in content marketing that might be not as advanced as you, is how do I learn what those needs, goals, and outcomes are? So how do you learn that of the audience? What types of, I guess, market listening techniques do you deploy?
Yeah, it's really important, obviously, to know your audiences and know the specific roles that they play. For us at Ellucian, we're dealing with institutions that have a lot of different functions that we engage with, that use our software. And so we need to know that IT function really well as HR function, the finance function, financial aid, people who are advisors to students, the faculty who have to enter grades. Like, there's a lot of different personas that we cater to and that need to use our software and understand who we are and what we provide to that institution. Similarly, when I was at SAP, you can imagine the breadth of different user types and personas that we had there. And both in my past at SAP as well as here at Ellucian, we're working with the concept of personas and making sure that we dive on research into the personas and find out, what are their pain points? What is keeping them up at night? How are they measured? How are they trying to manage their relationships within their business, across, down, up? And so that's some of the work that we did with SBI back in the fall. We were very lucky to be able to work with you and develop some key personas for us to leverage in helping us build the right on-point content for those different users and groups.
Yeah, fantastic. I think that's the big takeaway for you audience members, is make sure that those personas are done correctly and kept up to date. Okay, my next question here is regarding understanding the expectations of this audience. And what I mean by that is sometimes I think we're overly dependent on things like email, and sometimes, if we're not careful, we can spam our customers. And I'm trying to get to, how do you learn what their expectations are in terms of how frequently they want to hear from you, what format they want to receive content in, et cetera. So how do you learn about their expectations?
Another great question, and it really depends on where various individuals like to engage. So in higher education, you've got a little bit of older workforce, people in their 30s, 40s, 50s. They're not huge on social media, but they usually use LinkedIn. They go to conferences. The main thing that they do in our industry is that they talk to their peers. So unlike some other industries that are highly competitive, the higher education industry is very collaborative. And so what we find is that creating opportunities for peers to talk with one another is one of our best tactics. And so what we try to do is leverage content in ways that it creates conversations among our constituents, among our customers and prospects. We do that by, using our own e-communities, billboards within our customer community, but then at events, we might give sessions that help to get people networking. So we ask questions to the audience. We try and get them interactive in a session where we're presenting some research or content, get them to start talking about what's going on in their institutions, and then afterward they can talk together or talk with us. Also, similarly, when you're doing more field marketing, intimacy type of events where you're getting a group together for a breakfast, a dinner, that sort of thing, you can present some research or present some compelling content as part of the conversation to get things going, to get people on the same page and level set on a key topic, and then really get that conversation going amongst the folks that are there. So I think for us, there's a wealth of different ways to leverage content. You don't just want to do paid search, some paid media or LinkedIn campaign. You really want to seed that content throughout all the different ways that your customers like to interact with you, and that includes in person.
Yeah, very good. Okay. All right, my last question in this segment is understanding where your customers go to fulfill their information needs. So when we're trying to earn brand preference, you're going to produce all this highly valuable educational content. Of course, you're going to distribute that through your own channels, but I got to believe that your customers are going to other outlets to educate themselves on the things that are most important to them. So how do you learn about those outlets, and how do you promote or distribute your content into those other areas?
Yeah, so you really just need to know your space. You need to know the publications and the third parties that are the most credible in your space and that people turn to for information and advice. So, at SAP, we worked a lot with a variety of industry analysts like Gartner and Forrester, for example. We do that here as well at Ellucian, although some of the analyst channels are different here, as you can imagine, but some similar ones as well. And then also just knowing those third-party publications that are, the biggest and best and most respected in the space, trying to partner with them, not only to get your content published or to get a channel there. I mean, it's great to put out a banner ad or advertise a webcast or something through those channels. But what I really like to do is partner with those credible parties to get raw content developed. So, right now we've worked with the Ovum group quite a bit to create a few new research reports in some of the spaces that we're getting into around analytics, for example, or around moving higher ed to the cloud. Also, we would partner with a third party like the Chronicle or Inside Higher Ed here at Ellucian. So we work with them to either sponsor core research or even influence the research. So try to find ways in which you can seed your important topics and theories and themes into the research and the content that's being developed jointly with that third party, and that makes it much more compelling typically.
Fantastic. Okay, we're going to take a quick break from the interview to invite you, audience members, to participate in a remarkable experience. I'd like to personally invite you to the studio. What is the studio? The studio is our new executive briefing center. It was designed for leaders who are ready to turn up the volume on their revenue growth. It's a one-of-a-kind destination where we bring together emerging best practices, proven methodologies, and experiential learning all under one roof. The immersive sessions allow you to break away from the routine so you can focus on strengthening your skills and improving your performance. Visit our website, salesbenchmarkindex.com/the studio to learn more about our new Executive Briefing Center. Okay, this is the SBI Podcast. We'll be back in a second.
This is not a table. It is a stage where your performance is measured in numbers. If you reach them, you get an encore. If you don't, it could be curtains. That's why you need the well-rehearsed, proven sales and marketing strategies of SBI.
Welcome back, everybody. You're listening to the SBI Podcast. This is your host, Greg Alexander, and today's guest is Emily Rakowski, the Vice President of Solution Marketing for Ellucian. Today, we're demonstrating how to earn brand preference by satisfying the information needs of your target customers and prospects. So we're going to jump back into the questions. So let me pick up here, which is in terms of creating content and trying to understand the reasons for creating content. You know, are you creating it to create leads? Are you creating it to create brand awareness? You know, how does this help our business? How do you think through that in terms of what reasons you have for creating certain types of content?
In my mind, it's really about both awareness building and demand generation. So I think, you know, in our industry in B2B software, usually you're selling your customers on the promise of doing things differently and better than they're doing things today. And in order to get them thinking in that direction, you really need to not only understand their pain, but create a vision of how that pain could be alleviated, or even something more dynamic and a larger vision of where they could take their particular business process or industry. And so being able to create content that takes them there from a thought leadership standpoint, that really defines where the market is going and gives them the idea that you are the market leader, that you know where things are going, that you can help take them there as a leader. You're pulling them toward that next future of capability, I think is really important. Now, that doesn't always drive a huge amount of demand. Oftentimes, that type of content is more where you're doing market research studies, or you're doing, you know, the 5 trends that are going to impact your business type of thing. And maybe that's not directly aligned to your solutions specifically, and it shouldn't always be, right? I strongly believe that sometimes you have to do good content for good content's sake to develop that engagement and that trust with your audience. At the same time, usually there's a lot more tactical things that you can do to drive demand. You know, webinars, you know, paid search, things that are really going to be pointed about a specific thing that that person might be interested in from a technical standpoint, from a functional improvement standpoint, best practices, things of that nature, usually will really help to drive demand.
Yeah. You know, on a similar show, I had one of your peers on, and I asked this question to that person. And the answer I got, which I thought was really interesting, and I'll share it with the audience and share it with you, Emily, was when creating content in a B2B context, you have to answer the question, why change now? Just answering the question, why change, going from the status quo to the future isn't enough. Why do it right now? And I thought that was a great way to think about this. And if you're asking yourself that question, and you're thinking about whether it's your awareness content or your demand generation content, that could be kind of a North Star or a guiding light. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think a way to push that why change now concept forward is to give people those proof points of what their peers are already accomplishing that they're not. Right? So as soon as somebody feels that they're lagging, or, you know, that the industry or that their business processes are behind where a lot of other people are either already going or about to go, that gives them a bigger impetus for change. And we're seeing that right now in higher ed. There is a much bigger impetus for people to start really going to cloud solutions, for people to start really revisiting how to modernize their institutional systems. And, you know, we're seeing that seed change really coming with the analysts, with all the trending reports we're seeing. So it's the right time to show people how to move to that future, and why now is the right time.
Yeah, okay. All right, let me go to my next question, and that is, if you had an additional $1 million to spend, would you spend it on content marketing or the alternatives, and why or why not?
Yeah, so there's a couple things I would probably split the pot, and I think typically what I like to do is every year invest in 1 or 2 major content initiatives that have what I call long legs. So a major content initiative like a big global market research study, or recently we've done a project to compile the opinions of 30 thought leaders in our space across a variety of topics. That's a meaty piece of content that you can use bits and pieces of over time. And that content can live for 12, 18, 24 months and use it in all different permutations in the market. As long as you have, you know, a variety of topics, a variety of perspectives, different things you can share from that piece. So I say, invest in 1 or 2 really good long-legged content pieces for the year, and that's a good way to spend a chunk of money. The other piece of the pie that I think is really important and not everyone does well is what I would call value engineering or business case engineering. And that's really helping your customer create the business case to buy. And really the most compelling way to do that is to have some sort of benchmarking or industry standard metrics that you can tie your solutions to, and then really show how they move the needle on those metrics. And that way, every time you have an interaction with a key prospect, you can take their current state information, turn it around, create a really compelling business case based on your benchmarks or your industry standards, and show that you can really move the needle on their business. It's the best way to accelerate a deal.
Yeah, I agree. Great recommendation. Business case engineering, value engineering. Our company, SBI, stands for Sales Benchmark Index, and our heritage is in benchmarking. Yeah, and we certainly understand that and do that for our clients as well. Our benchmark is we want our clients to make their number. That's our brand promise. And the way we measure that is, are you growing organically, top-line revenue, faster than your industry growth rate and the growth rate of your competitors? If you are, you're making your number. If you're not, you're not. And I think developing business cases around that, just to use us as an example for the audience as they try to wrap their heads around this idea of what value engineering is or business case engineering, come up with your version of that. And it sounds like Ellucian has done that, and that's a very effective way to earn brand preference. Okay, my last question for you in this segment, and we'll take another break, is let's talk about the content marketing team or the staff allocated to developing and promoting content. Sometimes I talk to my clients and they say, yeah, I'd love to do all these things, but, I got 1.5 people. So how do I make it happen? So what does a team look like there?
So the team here in marketing is pretty substantive. On my solutions marketing team, I've got a headcount of 10. We also have a lot of other folks out there doing communications work, doing brand and strategy work in the marketing team. I'd say one of our biggest strengths is having an in-house creative team. Yeah. And this really helps us to crank out content at a much more rapid pace than we normally would be able to if we use third parties. That's not to say that it's a bad thing to use third parties for content creation. I just find that it takes a little bit of a longer time frame usually to manage those projects through to finalization. And so having an in-house creative team where you're really in sync, they know what you like, they know your preferences, the brand voice, what you're going for in a piece, it's easier to explain it to someone in person, for example. I think having that engine is huge. The other thing that we really take advantages of is our internal expertise. So we don't always have the budget to go out and do these huge projects like I was just mentioning. But we do have in-house experts who work day in and day out with our clients. It's our consultants that are doing the implementation projects for our clients. And as well, we have a strategic management consulting team who all used to be in higher ed in a variety of different roles. And now they come in and consult to our clients. Well, they're a wealth of knowledge. And so we leverage that team very heavily in creating net new thought leadership content, very short white papers or best practices blogs. They know the business. They know the business of higher ed, and they're able to articulate best practices very easily. So we pick their brains, we interview them. We don't make them do the hard work of actually writing necessarily, but we find ways to engage their knowledge and turn it into content. And that's been a very successful strategy. Yeah. And the other thing I want to mention is sales. So sales has to be involved in understanding the content and being able to leverage it in the right ways with their clients. Yeah. I think this is critical. A lot of businesses don't tell sales about the content they're creating or don't educate them on the content. And I think that's a mistake. When you're going to ask sales to sometimes use content as a door opening device, they need to understand the information in that content, why it's important, why it would be meaningful to the customer, and what the best practices or business cases that's involved with that content before they go and start peddling it, in my opinion.
Yeah, fantastic. What I love about your answer there, which I think is often not considered, is you have a lot of expertise inside of your company. Even though they're not in the marketing organization, that doesn't matter. They have this expertise, and your internal team, especially in-house creative, I love that idea, is you can go and pull those insights out of those thought leaders and package that up and offer that back out to your audience. And that's a very effective and cost-effective way to make that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. All right, let's take another break. So would you like to implement some of the things Emily has spoken to you about today? If you don't, I don't know what's wrong with you. You need to. If so, I think we can help you. Consider having one of our experts spend some time with you in a workshop to talk about creating brand preference through content marketing. If you want to get a feel for what's covered in this workshop, download the workbook that we use in the workshop, and you can find that at sbi.tips/2017. And you can see exactly the types of exercises we might put you through. Okay, one more segment with Emily after the break. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Meet Tom. He's the CEO of a leading medical device company, and this is his business partner, the latest SBI Workbook. Every day, Tom uses the Workbook to guide his sales and marketing vision. The yellow sticky? That's his corporate strategy. The pink sticky? His product roadmap. The dog-eared section? That's where Tom's mapped out next year's growth plan. The stain on the cover? That's from the champagne he popped open when they made their Q4 number.
That was a good day, wasn't it, Mr. Workbook?
How do you SBI? Take it to the next level with the SBI Workbook. Order your copy today at howdoyousbi.com.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. This is our last segment with Emily, demonstrating how to earn brand preference by satisfying the information needs of your target customers and prospects. I got 3 more questions for you, Emily. So my first question is a little tactical, which is regarding tools, things like editorial calendars, production schedules. So share with the audience some of the tools that you use.
Sure. Well, here at Ellucian, we use a variety of tools for planning purposes. We're a little bit old school, I would say. We use typical sort of PowerPoints and Smartsheet. We love Smartsheet. If you don't know it, check it out. It's a great tool. But we also use, from a production standpoint, we use a project management tool called Basecamp, which helps us collaborate on content development. And that's been really helpful to the entirety of the organization in cranking out projects very quickly. We also use a WebDAM tool, which we're just implementing now. So I'm not entirely sure, all the different use cases that we'll have for the WebDAM. And I think for us, the most important thing that we're currently working on is tools to get our content more easily and readily into the hands of our salespeople who are on the go all the time. So we're really working on an initiative with a specific tool that's integrated with Salesforce.com, which is our CRM tool that we use, and probably many of you use. And so we're working on a tool set to enable them to share thought leadership and other types of solution-related content on the fly through the Salesforce mobile app and through their Salesforce instance. And it also gives them information back on what the engagement was with that content. Yeah. So it's a really useful tool.
Okay, great. And then in terms of who has the authority to green light a content project, you mentioned in the last segment you'll invest a lot in 1 or 2 long-legged pieces of content. And it seems like since you're putting all the wood behind 1 or 2 arrows, it's probably a significant investment in people, money, and time. So who green lights that process, and what's the authority there?
So, here at Ellucian, it's my boss, Jackie, is our Chief Marketing Officer, Jackie Yaney. She's terrific. And, it's really up to her to make the case to our executive team for a significant investment like that. But we have an overarching budget that we're working within, as is anyone. So I think just making the business case for why you want to make a significant investment in a certain prioritized project is sort of a typical how you run business. Yeah. I think, making the business case for why things are important that our executive team may not understand as well from a marketing standpoint is really incumbent on us to explain why certain types of thought leadership, certain types of market research, or certain types of initiatives will be able to move the business forward. Sometimes it's harder for them to understand it until they've actually seen examples of it, or you give them a little bit more meat to understand where you can take an initiative. So oftentimes I've used successful initiatives from my past life and showcased how it was used, what the ROI was from that type of a project in the past, how we tracked the effectiveness of that project, and then used that to help build the business case for that type of investment.
All right, very good. And let's assume the executive leadership team gets presented a business case by you folks in marketing, and they say, I think that's a good idea, let's go forward. At some point, you're going to have to prove that business case out and share how we measured the effectiveness of that investment. So how do you measure the effectiveness of your content?
So that's sometimes a tricky one, but we try and take pretty standard practices when it comes to measuring our content. And really in this area, it depends on your approach to the content, whether you think people are going to respond to pieces that are gated or ungated, or how you get them out in the universe. So if you're going to use gated content for things that are really meaty, that people are going to want to download, it's a compelling enough title and abstract, out there that they're going to want it. It's okay. I think it is okay to gate certain pieces of content. And from that, of course, you get the direct contact information, and you can run that down through a typical, marketing funnel and see how that performed from a qualified lead and marketing generated opportunity standpoint. So we always want to track those types of things. I think the trickier part really comes when you've got ungated content that you're just sharing. It's content on your blog. It's content that you might put out through social channels, that you might post out to the universe, not ask for form information. So there you really want to use other types of metrics like engagement metrics. How long did they sit on your piece of content? Did they click through to things within that content? Then from there, did they go on to ask for sales engagement or ask for some other level of engagement? So trying to use those types of metrics to see how compelling it was, I think is useful. You have to have the tools in place to be able to have trackable links in every place that you put content out in the universe. So if you're going to use a variety of different paid tactics and third parties to get your content out there, you need to have a good system in place to make sure you'll be able to produce those trackable links and then tie them all back into your marketing automation tool.
Yep, very good. Well, Emily, listen, I know you were very busy and you took the time out of your hectic life. I know today is Bring Your Kids to Work Day, and there's chaos happening behind you right now.
That's why it's so loud in the background, sorry.
That's all right. So listen, on behalf of our large and growing audience, you added a lot to us today. I know I got smarter today, and I'm sure my audience did as well. So thank you for being generous with your time and appearing on our show.
Thanks for the opportunity. It was a pleasure.
Okay, great. All right, and I want to thank you, the SBI audience, for tuning in. Last quarter, this show hit another milestone thanks to you. 69% of the subscribers of our award-winning blog have also subscribed to this podcast. This tells us audio content is important to you, so we're going to keep producing it. Thank you for your continued support. All right, if you want to learn more about this topic or the other areas that we focus on, go to salesbenchmarkindex.com/register. This allows you to personalize your experience with our content. For instance, you can choose the topics you're interested in and how often you want to learn about them. Okay, that's it for today. As always, until next time, I wish you good luck as you try and make your number.
This has been the SBI Podcast. For more information on SBI services, case studies, the SBI team and how we work, or to subscribe to our other offerings, please visit us at salesbenchmarkindex.com.